Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Monster Analysis. Up for analysis today is Ingenica. From a young age, Ingenica stood out from her engineering mind and soon became famous. All monster masters crave her signature products, artifacts, and her latest creation, relics, will change battles forever. She plays a key role in the future of Monster Legends. And so, according to the lore, Ingenica is the creator of the also popular relics and artifact monsters. Here we have her as an adult, as a teen, as a child. She's the newest and latest Fire Legendary monster. And speaking of Fire Legendary monsters, there are currently 33 Fire Legendary monsters as of the time recording this video. And furthermore, Ingenica is also in the Mechanical book, which I believe she's the first Fire monster to be a part of the Mechanical book, so props to her. And she's also part of the Exclusive book, which is home to the VIP monsters, the Nemesis monsters, the Premier monsters, the Vanoss monsters. There's a ton of composition in the Exclusives book. And then lastly, Ingenica is a part of the Female book, which there is a ton of great composition in that book too. And so with that said, let's start analyzing her stats. Her power is 3465, and this is a stat we normally see on speed. And 3465 is actually a really good power stat. In terms of fire monsters, this actually puts her in 15th place, tied with monsters like Commander Elvid, Relbog, Passions, Tryon, Igursus, and Fireowl. And I should also mention that the power stat itself, 3465, it's actually the 7th highest in the fire category. Moving on to life, 30,461, this actually puts her in 8th place. So far she has a good power, a good life, and then take a look at that speed. 3553, 3,553. Have you ever seen a monster this fast? Well, actually yes. This is the speed that Lao Lao has. In the fire category though, no monster even comes close to her. She is the fastest, the newest and fastest fire legendary monster. But in terms of every single monster released in the game, she is tied for 4th place with Lao Lao, and there's only 3 other monsters that are faster than Ingenica, which would be Gretchen, Cassie, and Mercurius. And so she is quite impressive there. And as for her trait, she doesn't have Hardened, she actually has Tough. All status effects have a 35% less accuracy to land against this target. It is an amazing trait. You know, I rave about how incredible it is to have Hardened for your average monster. Well, here we have a pretty average monster that was given the Tough trait, and so that's pretty amazing. I mentioned in a previous video that I would have really liked it if she had Bulwark or something like Artifact. After all, she is the creator of the Artifact trait, but then in that case I think she would have been a little too powerful, so I understand why they gave her Tough. And as for her relics, she can hold an amulet and a staff relic. And with all that out of the way, let's talk about her skills, starting things off with her ultimate skill. Programmed Obsolescence deals heavy fire damage to all enemies, applies possession to all enemies, attacker removes positive status effects from all enemies, disables traits on all enemies. Wow, that is a mouthful. And so this skill deals 50 fire-based damage to all of the enemy monsters. It also applies possession to all of the enemies, so enemies get possessed, okay, that's one thing. It also removes any positive status effects the enemy monsters may have, and then it also disables the traits on all of the enemy monsters. So this ultimate attack truly does a lot. Now there is one thing I'm wondering, and that's, what does this do first? Does this ultimate attack actually apply possession first and then disable the traits? Or does it disable the traits first? And this is really important because if it disables the traits first, then monsters that are immune to possession are obviously going to be able to be possessed. But what happens if this skill tries to possess first and a monster is immune to possession? Then they're not going to be possessed and then they get their trait disabled. That's kind of going to suck. I imagine it's going to be the other way around, where even if a monster is immune to possession, their traits get disabled and then they get possessed. Hopefully that's how it works, because that's what makes the most logical sense. But yeah, if it is that way, this is an amazing ultimate attack. A free possession, like no way of denying the possession, right? It's an ultimate, their trait's disabled, it doesn't matter what their immunity is or their trait is. Oh gosh, it's an awesome ultimate attack, assuming it works that way. And as an added plus side, it also removes good effects. And this is what I'm saying, there's no way to protect against possession, because I'm also assuming that remove good effects will remove anything like whole team is immune to possession. I'm hoping that's the way it is. I'm hoping that the possession works last. But yeah, that's as far as I'm going to say about programmed. We'll talk about trait disabled a little more in detail in a little bit. Moving on over to skills group 1, there is one skill I really quickly want to talk about. It's called Update Released. 50% chance of applying Artifact Hater to all allies, removes all negative status effects from all allies. So no damage because it's a team skill, 29 stamina cost, and it's spammable. The reason I really like this skill is just because of the second part right here where it says removes all negative status effects from all allies. Keep in mind you have the Tough trait, so 35% of the times negative status effects won't be landing against you, and if you have Update Released, it's a spammable skill. You can use it whenever you need to, cooldowns activated has no effect on you, and you're going to be able to remove negative status effects from your team. That is quite powerful, and you may want to consider running it. I can't say it's a must-have skill, but just for those of you that want to be safe, it's a really feasible skill. At the same time, you also get a 50% chance to give your whole team Artifact Hater. And Artifact Hater essentially, it works very similar to Mechanical Hater, in which your monsters essentially are going to get a buff to any monster that has the Artifact trait. And now there's quite a bit of them that actually have the Artifact trait. Now, unfortunately, what I haven't been able to do is figure out how much of an increase do you get. I looked over the Monster Legends video, the Social Point video over and over again trying to calculate it, but it's impossible. So if you saw the video, you would know that Chrysandre did Time Breaker on an enemy artifact monster, I think on Timerion, right? And it dealt like 14k damage. Now Time Breaker is already a 65 damage skill, and you have that magic against metal elemental advantage, and then she also had double damage, and then on top of that she had Artifact Hater, so for all of those different combinations to only deal 14k damage, that didn't make any sense to me. So I had no idea how to calculate the damage. I have no idea how the buff was calculated in the video. 14k, that seems so low for everything that Chrysandre had. But yeah, I guess we'll find out once the player actually has a monster and they can let us know. But that's all I'm going to say about update released. Moving on over to skills group 2, we have Taser Gun. Deals heavy special damage to one enemy, applies energy leak to one enemy, requires cooldown, 50 special base damage, 22 stamina cost, 1 turn cooldown, stamina leak. Sorry, there's no reason to run this skill. On to the next skill, Instructions Manual. Applies precision to an ally, applies Artifact Hater to an ally, removes negative status effects from one ally. So this is a single ally skill, 31 stamina cost, no cooldown, so it's also spammable. And this skill actually gives your monster increased accuracy, as well as Artifact Hater, as well as remove any positive status effects. So this is another skill very similar to Update Released, except Update Released is a team skill, whereas Instructions Manual is just for a single monster, and they also get increased accuracy, and it's a guaranteed Artifact Hater. This might be the more beneficial skill, especially if you have an attacker on your team, and that attacker has a powerful AoE, or a strong single hit, you know, taking on those enemy Tankarions or Flamarions that have the Artifact trait, maybe a Life Rune. Having that increased accuracy, that Artifact Hater, that can really help you out. So this is a skill you may want to consider running. As for the next skill, we have Personality Confusion. I think that's supposed to be Confusion. Yeah, Confusion makes the most sense. Personality Confusion deals heavy special damage to one enemy, applies trait disabled on one enemy, requires cooldown, 45 damage, special base, 27 stamina cost, 1 turn cooldown, 95% accuracy, and applies trait disabled. Now I guess now's the perfect time to talk about trait disabled. Right now there's a lot we don't know about trait disabled, and there's a lot we do know. The first thing we know is that this does work on monsters that have the Artifact trait, which means it's going to work on monsters that have Bulwark, Tough, Hardened, and according to the video that Social Point released, it doesn't appear that it's a negative status effect. It kind of feels like it's just, it always lands, at least that's what we can interpret from the video. Because the Artifact makes it so you're immune to all status effects, so how exactly can Trait Disabled land if it was a negative status effect? Artifact would immediately not allow that unless there's some overriding going on. In which case, I guess we're going to have to wait and find out if it is going to have that 50% chance to go over Bulwark or Tough. But it doesn't seem that way. It really seems like whatever trait the enemy has, it just completely obliterates it. Now they have no trait. The only thing I'm wondering about is, can this be removed? Can you remove negative effects and trait disabled disappears? And the reason I'm wondering that is because of right here. It says it only lasts for 3 turns. So there's some lack of clarity from Social Point's part. But like usual, we're just going to have to figure it out for ourselves. Now, trait disabled. This is where things get really interesting. And I guess I need to talk about skill group 3 before I can start talking about the rune setups. And you'll see why I said it's interesting, this monster. So the next skill we have is Plasma Gun. Deals massive magic damage to one enemy. A fire monster with a magic attack. Is that a random? Yeah, a random magic attack. It's like, let's just throw in this random magic attack that doesn't even attack with her gun, but instead with her wrench. But whatever. Deals massive magic damage attack to one enemy. Attacker removes positive status effects from one enemy, requires cooldown. 65 damage, 27 stamina, 1 turn cooldown, and it removes good effects. I just love the fact that it removes good effects. Like I said, she has a high power. If for some reason you wanted to make her as an attacker, you'll actually notice that the gun skills, Taser Gun, I think there was one more, Personality Confusion, those skills specifically are the more attack oriented. I don't think it'd be that great of a build for her, but it's a possibility. There are endless possibilities, and even though some may not be better than others, you're free to use whatever you want. And so Plasma Gun, that's a skill you really use at your discretion. And actually, I guess I kind of figured out why she has a magic based attack. because she is the creator of the artifact monsters, and those artifact monsters, the legendary monsters, they tend to be, I think they all are, yeah, they're all metal monsters, right? So because they're metal, you now have an elemental advantage over them. So actually, if you give Artifact Hater to yourself, well, now you have the boost from Artifact Hater, and you have the boost from the elemental advantage, magic against metal. So I guess that's why they did it. So I guess Ingenica herself has the potential to get rid of her creations, to get rid of those artifacts. That's pretty cool actually. But moving on over, we also have Stress Test. This is a skill that was used in the video to boost Cassandre's attack power, and the skill she used against Timiron, which I said only dealt 14k, which doesn't make any sense to me. But anyhow, applies double damage to one ally, applies Artifact Hater to one ally, removes all negative side effects from one ally, requires cooldown. So again, this skill is very similar to Instructions Manual, the difference being you get double damage here, and over here you get increased accuracy. This has no cooldown, this has a one-turn cooldown, and Instructions Manual costs a little more stamina. So it's up to you which one you want to run. I imagine more people are going to go with Stress Test because once again, getting rid of those artifact monsters can be quite difficult. If you don't eliminate Flamarion or Tinkerion right off the bat, they can cause some serious trouble, and especially they tend to have like a life rune on defense, so you can't apply Burning, you can't apply Sunburn, you can't hit any DLTs on them because of their trait Artifact. But now we have a monster that not only gives you a boost against those artifact monsters, she can also disable their traits. And speaking of which, we have my favorite trait, deals moderate special damage to all enemies, applies trait disabled on all enemies, attacker also removes positive side effects from all enemies, requires cooldown. So 35 damage, 43 stamina cost, 2-turn cooldown, applies trait disabled, and remove good effects. First of all, the fact that it removes positive effects, that's awesome already. And once again, it also disables the traits. And so once again, from what we were able to actually see in the video, when Ingenica used this skill against the enemy Flamarion and Timerion, it actually landed. So there's a lot more questions. First of all, it's still a 90% accuracy skill. So does that mean there's still a 10% chance to miss? I think that's the most obvious scenario, right? So you're not always going to be landing trait disabled. And that's quite unfortunate. I really would have liked if this was like a 100 accuracy skill and you guaranteed the trait disabled, but I guess that doesn't appear to be the case. And with that said, now for the question everyone is probably wondering. Is Ingenica worth it? Is trait disabled really all that good? Or is it just a complete waste? What is going on with this monster? Well, I'm going to say that initially, I think a lot of players may look at this monster and be like, she's not really that usable. Like, for example, if you give this monster 3 speed runes, so you can go first and activate trait disabled on the enemy team, then your deny monster can go and deny everyone, right? That's how you imagine it. But then when you start thinking about it, you're like, wait a minute. If Ingenica has 3 speedruns, and my Deny monster has 3 speedruns, and my attacker has 2 strength and a team speed, the enemy Deny monster that has teammates with team speed, they're gonna go before your Ingenica, before your Deny monster, before your attacker, in which case your whole team gets immobilized. Oh my gosh, that's terrible, right? Ingenica sucks. I wouldn't think of it that way. I actually think this monster has a lot of amazing potential. Like seriously, I think this monster has the capacity to be one of the best in the game. Now, if you were originally thinking what I mentioned earlier, allow me to try to change your mindset on things. For a long time, the typical method has been run a monster with 3 speed runes, run an attacker with 2 strength and a team speed, or 2 strength and a single speed, or maybe 1 strength, 1 speed, 1 team speed. You know, your attacker, he needs at least 1 strength rune, and then you run a third monster with 3 team speed, and the whole idea is that you go first, your Deny monster denies the enemy team. And for a long time I've been saying, it's really going to change because there are so many monsters that are having immunities to different sorts of things. And what I mean by that is like an earth monster that's immune to possession, a magic monster that's immune to stun, not just possession, water monsters that are immune to stun, immune to possession, and actually more and more, now we're getting monsters that have hardened trait. It seems like every new good monster has the hardened trait. So tell me, what do you do if there's 3 monsters on the enemy team that have the hardened trait? Are you actually going to tell me you're going to rely on an AoE deny? You're going to rely on AoE freeze when there's an 80% chance for each of those monsters to not get immobilized? That's not a really good strategy. And even more so with the introduction of the artifact monsters. What if you're facing a team that has an artifact monster, a tough monster, and then a mountain monster? So the mountain monster is immune to freeze and stun. The tough monster, well, they just have a 35% accuracy to not get immobilized. And then the artifact monster can't get immobilized. So what is your strategy there? Are you still going to run a Deny monster with 3 speed runes and then team speed on a treachery monster? I don't think that'd be the best course of action. So with that being said, that's where Ingenica really shines. I think there are plenty of situations, both in player versus player, and even more so in Team Wars, especially in Team Wars, where you're actually going to be able to utilize Ingenica with 3 speed runes. Because in Team Wars, you actually get to see the speed, you actually get to take a look at all of their stats. So if you find yourself in a scenario where you're facing, well, keep in mind she's in the mechanical book, so if you find yourself in a team wars where the enemy has a Flamarion or a Tankarion on defense, and you find that you could use Ingenica with 3 speed and a Deny monster with 3 speed, there you go, you can easily mobilize everyone. So that's going to be a really useful strategy. And even in player versus player, I don't know how many people have actually gone up against a Tankarion or a Flamarion on defense. They typically tend to run a rainbow build. They don't run all team speed, they run a strength rune, a life rune, a team speed rune, or an individual speed rune. And they kick your butts. I'm telling you, from personal experience, you can't take out those monsters because they have the artifact trait. DOTs doesn't work against them, you can't reduce their accuracy, you can't touch them, so you really gotta take them out. Well, with Ingenica, that finally allows you to touch them, but more so because when you face those monsters, you know they're not going to be running 3 team speed, usually, well then you could utilize that strategy. So essentially what I'm trying to get at is that this monster is quite amazing, you just have to know how to use her. You know, you can't rely on the typical old strategy of 3 speed deny. Like that, I seriously think the more and more we play this game, with the introduction of relics, with more and more monsters having hardened, with more and more monsters having like celestial, abomination, mountain traits like that, I think a monster like Ingenica can really shine and thrive. But at the end of the day, that's just my personal opinion, and I want to hear from all of you guys. What do you guys think about this monster? Do you think she's a little underwhelming? Do you think she's quite good like I do? What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. I am really interested to hearing your guys' thoughts, because I just have a feeling that maybe a lot of players aren't quite going to be able to grasp her usefulness. But that's alright too, because I would also go as far as to say that this is not a must-have monster by any means, but if you do have her, you're definitely going to notice her usefulness. So with that being said, please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Best of luck to all of you on your Monster Legends adventures, and like always, remember to dream big and pursue your passions.